Hey audio nerds, welcome back to the channel, and today we need to have a conversation about the new Sony WH-1000XM5s. Now these are Sony's top of the line noise cancelling Bluetooth headphones, just released a couple of weeks ago. Sony's built up a real reputation with the 1000X series, and these are unsurprisingly the fifth iteration, the last being the XM4s released back in 2020, and I'll talk about those in a minute. Now, I can already hear some of you getting a bit sniffy and saying, these are not audiophile products, why are you talking about them? And to some extent, I'd agree with you. I've always maintained that Bluetooth technology in general, more specifically closed back, noise cancelling Bluetooth cans, aren't really meant to give you an audiophile experience. If you really care about sound quality, you'll go and get something much cheaper, like the Hi-Fi Man Sundaras behind me, and they will cater for your audiophile needs amply. But let's not get too snobbish, because Bluetooth noise cancelling cans do have an important role to play, even in the lives of the most snobby audiophile. So when you're out and about, particularly travelling, public transport, London Underground, which is really noisy, then you can't argue with the convenience and noise isolation of Bluetooth cans. They allow you to enjoy your music even when you're in noisy environments, and they allow you to turn the volume down so you're not totally blowing your eardrums apart. However, we are at heart snobby audiophiles, aren't we? So as well as providing convenience, they've also got to sound good. I was a little bit nervous about spending £380 of my own money on these, because I absolutely hated the predecessor, the WH-1000XM4s. Those were similarly well constructed and comfy to wear, but they were let down by the appalling sound quality. I can only describe them as absolute bass-heavy monsters, and the bass was like the uninvited guest that gate crashes your party, gets really drunk, talks too loud and drowns everyone else out. That basically was the bass on the 1000XM4s. The treble was also awful. It just sounded like a smeary metallic mess. So the good news is, and I'll say this front and center, and if it means that you won't watch the rest of the video, then so be it, Sony have done an excellent job on the XM5s. They sound so much better than the XM4s. So I've been using them extensively for the last week or so. I've been listening to a whole load of new music. So there's been new albums from Arcade Fire, Rammstein, Röyksopp, even that old Mancunian rascal Liam Gallagher. So a real wide mix of music to put these through their paces. Importantly, this time round, Sony have turned down the bass response. So yeah, there's still plenty of punchy bass here, but the overpowering mid-bass that characterised the XM4s and bled all over the mid-range, that's been wound back remarkably well. So you still get plenty of bass, there's plenty of oomph here, don't worry, but it's just so much more tastefully done, so you now get an appreciation of the texture of the bass. There's also some sub-bass extension, although it definitely doesn't go as low as other cans, particularly the AirPod Max. The mid-range really benefits from the bass being much less prominent, so male vocals in particular benefit from this approach hugely. However, the whole of the mid-range sounds pretty spacious, well separated, with, I would say, just the upper mid-range, so maybe some female vocalists just still sound a little bit thin. But it's really not too bad. You'll definitely enjoy the mid-range on these plucked guitars, synth lines, they all sound pretty clean. The treble is the other area that's improved dramatically, so rather than being a smeary mess on the XM4s, you can now hear some semblance of detail. It's certainly not Sundara levels of detail, but it's much better, and it gives the music a nice airiness and texture in the upper registers. So let's come on to that other feature that most people will be buying these for, and that is noise cancellation. Now, I have to say, having listened to a few noise cancelling pairs over the years, these are absolutely on point. In fact, I'd say they're best in class. Now, I haven't done a lot of travel on airplanes or anything recently, but I do use them a lot on public transport, noisy buses, London Underground, all that kind of stuff. And these are excellent at cancelling out constant low-level noises from machinery, from engines, that kind of stuff. They're pretty good at cancelling out everything else too, although obviously they won't cancel out some voices and very high-pitched sounds. No cans can do that properly. The other thing that's better about these compared to the XM4s is that the transparency mode is much better. Remember, that's a mode that you put them into when you want to hear what's going on around you. And again, the AirPods Max are, I think, out on their own in that field. Apple just seem to have nailed that technology. But Sony's catching up, so it's not quite as good, quite as natural sounding as on the AirPods Max, but it's so much better than predecessors. The next thing I want to talk about is connecting these to your devices, whether it's an Android device or an iOS device, and it's really very quick and easy. The Bluetooth pairing is quick to pick up the headphones and connect to them. And remember, if you're using Android, you can benefit from the higher quality LDAC codec. On iOS, you are limited to AAC. I'd also like to particularly mention Sony's Headphone Connect app, which is one of the better bits of headphone app software that there is. You can control pretty much every setting on these. You can update the firmware, which has happened once since I bought them. You can control the degree of transparency mode, and importantly, you can fiddle with the EQ. Now, when I was testing these initially, I just used the stock EQ and it was fine. Out of the box, it was okay. But I found just by tweaking the treble and mids a little bit, I got a sound that I was much happier with. Now, some of you might be aware that this year Sony caused a bit of a stir with the design change. It's the most major design change to the 1000X series since they were launched, and what we've got this year are same all plastic construction, but that's okay because it means that they remain pretty light. But we've got a different kind of telescoping adjustment for the ear cup height, and that's a little bit like the AirPods Max adjustment, although obviously not premium metal. The whole mechanism feels a lot less creaky than last year, and that's mainly because these don't fold up anymore. Yes, you heard it right, the ear cups fold flat, but whereas previous models folded up completely so you could tuck them into a smaller case, these ones just fold flat and have to go in a slightly bigger case, which I've got here. Now, it's still quite a good quality case. It's got a kind of a hard outer lining, so your headphones aren't going to get squished, and it's nicely cushioned on the inside. And to be honest with you, I don't mind that they don't fold up because they still fit really nicely, and the whole case is quite thin. There's also a little magnetic latch holding a compartment closed here. You don't get a headphone cable, of course, with the AirPods Max. You have to buy that separately for something ridiculous like 35 quid. So overall, case is still quite nice and goes in most of my bags quite easily. Battery life is still solid. It's 30 hours, which I think was roughly the same as the XM4s, and that's in noise cancelling mode. Sony reckon you'll get another 10 hours if you turn noise cancelling off. Going by past form, I'd say that's probably pretty accurate, and I think 30 hours is more than enough even for the longest flight. So I'm pretty happy with that, and the most impressive new feature this year is the fast charging. So as long as you've got a PD, power delivery compatible fast charger, you can juice these up really quickly, and 3 minutes of charging will give you 3 hours of an uninterrupted listening, which is great if you're in a rush like me, as I always am, and you've forgotten to charge your headphones. You probably have a USB-C cable and a fast charger lying around already. You do get a USB-A to C charging cable in the box, but it's really short, so you'll probably want to use your own. Like previous versions, the XM5s are not waterproof. They've got no official IP rating, so I'd be particularly careful about wearing them out and about in heavy rain showers. So all things considered, I'm actually quite a big fan of the XM5s. I would, however, say that I'm not sure they're worth £380. It's a lot of money, albeit still much cheaper than the AirPods Max. Typically, these do tend to drop in price fairly quickly, so I would be much more tempted to wait and see if you can get them for around the £300 to £330 price point. At that price, I think they're much more attractive. However, if you have got deep pockets and you want a big sonic upgrade from the XM4s, then by all means get the XM5s. I don't think you'll be disappointed, and I'm really pleased that Sony's made such a big improvement in their sound. So those are my thoughts, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.